Good evening, I'm Naila Huda and you're watching a special edition of Perspective. The inauguration ceremony of the 46th President of the United States is unlike any other. Overshadowed by a pandemic killing an average of over 1,000 people a day in the US, one of the worst global economic crises in history, and now the rise of violent extremist movements as we've seen in the Capitol riots on the 6th of January. A breath of fresh air is needed now more than ever, and that is the hope of millions of Americans as President-elect Joe Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris usher in a new era of leadership in the White House. But Malaysia will not only part ways with President Trump, as we will also be welcoming a new U.S. ambassador to Malaysia after Ambassador Kamala Lakhdhir ends her service here since being assigned to this country in 2016. I'm very honored for the opportunity to speak with her in the midst of this monumental and historical transition of power, looking back at her legacy in strengthening relations between Malaysia and the U.S. and her hopes for what comes next. Ambassador Kamala, thank you so much for joining me. Can you share with us some of your accomplishments after 4 years being in Malaysia?
I'm very, very proud of so much of the work of my embassy colleagues. So when you're an ambassador, people think you do things, but the truth is it's your entire team at the embassy, both American officers and staff and Malaysians. So I'm most proud of the leadership and the team that I built with my deputies. I'm really proud of all the work they have done with me, and so that's my greatest actual accomplishment. And it's been really tough because of COVID-19, and so we had to change so many ways of doing things, and my team has been really successful. I'm also really proud. I visited every single state in Malaysia, and in some cases, I went back many times. I've been to Penang many times because we have so many US companies that have invested there, but I've also visited US companies in almost every state in Malaysia. So I'm also really proud of our people-to-people programs, whether it's our English teaching assistants or our Waisili Young Southeast Asian Leadership Initiative professional and young leaders. I'm really proud of our YES, which is the high school age students who go to the US. So I'm proud of many of the exchanges. We have other exchanges, and this is our commitment to young people in Malaysia, future leaders of Malaysia, and building that relationship for the long term.
Ambassador, looking back on your time here in Malaysia, what remains unaccomplished?
When you're an ambassador, you arrive and you inherit a set time and moment. I came in January 2017. I've been in Malaysia through the election in May 2018, the PH government, now the PN government. I'm in Malaysia through a series of other external factors like COVID-19. Many different things have happened over the 4 years. So I inherited from my fellow ambassador a set of issues, and the new ambassador will inherit. Many of them are the same issues. And what we do is we try to move forward with Malaysia in all these different areas, whether it's politics, whether it's the trade and economic relationship, whether it's education. We do a lot of work in English education, whether it's public health cooperation, security cooperation, law enforcement. So it's funny when you say what is left undone, everything is left undone because all those things you keep pushing forward with your Malaysian partners when you're ambassador. So there are lots of things where I am leaving and I think, oh, I want to do this or I want to do that. I had meetings today, virtual meetings with various chief ministers. I have meetings, virtual meetings with some ministers before I depart. And we are talking about, okay, in these different areas, where have we gotten to and what will we do next? And I say, I will pass on to my fellow ambassador who's coming, Ambassador McFeeters, and he will take up the work. So I don't feel, you could feel like, oh, I didn't get it done, But I think, no, I am part of a line of ambassadors, and we put down our tools and someone will pick them up. So I really, and COVID-19 changed a lot because many things we would have done in person, we've have to enter the virtual world. So that is shifted and changed a lot of the work that we were trying to do in 2020 and 2021. But that doesn't mean we haven't made progress in lots of different ways.
I think the best way to describe it is there's always work to be done. So, following from this, what do you hope and expect to see in America's relationship with Malaysia under Biden and Kamala Harris? What will change or perhaps remain the same?
There is always more work. It is not like we will not have a job. You are absolutely right. So I think the biggest challenge going forward for the new Biden administration, just like for Malaysia, is how will we handle the COVID-19 situation in the United States? As you know, it's very, very serious. And also, how will we handle issue of the economy and the global economy? Because the United States and Malaysia are both part of the global economy. We have lots of connectedness and interaction, and it's also the region, the economy of the region writ large. So I think a lot of the work of the new administration will be focused in these areas. I also think the new administration has signaled that they're interested in multilateral interaction. So for us here in this region, it will be working closer with ASEAN, also with APEC. Malaysia was the host. It had to be virtual, and New Zealand, it's going to be virtual, but strengthening those connections and relationships in APEC. And then we have the East Asia Summit that Brunei is hosting. So I think the new administration will be focused on those regional and global interactions. There's lots of work, of course, to be done in the WTO, in OECD, on economic side and trade side. So I think they'll be focused there. And I think the new administration has signaled climate change will be an important priority. And Malaysia has participated in all of these discussions and is a very important regional player. So I think that for us, there will be engagement in these areas. I also think, and I would say this to Malaysia is also working to come out of a COVID-19 situation, also has a lot of economic challenges. So what Malaysia is looking coming out of COVID-19 will also be important for the US to understand.
Ambassador, what do you think are some lessons learned throughout your entire time here, and what advice would you leave for the next ambassador in line?
So, and this is something about what I really feel really, really thankful and grateful to Malaysians, is that it's important to engage with everybody in Malaysia. Of course, I'm the ambassador. I meet with the prime minister, the ministers, the chief ministers. That's an important formal government to government set of conversations. But it's important to engage across society, civil society, NGOs, university students, SMK students. I visited many, many SMKs and would talk to the students. To travel to every part of Malaysia and engage with people so they can better understand the United States, and we as Americans and at the embassy can better understand the challenges that Malaysians face and the visions they have for their future. And I think that some of my most fond memories and what I learned the most from was having conversations with teachers and students and doctors. And I have a particular interest in public health. And even though I'm a diplomat, I'm not a scientist, but understanding from our environmental specialists, our veterinarians who are working on public health of emerging diseases, and seeing how these things, how we and Malaysian counterparts can push forward these activities for the benefit of both our societies. It's really, I'm really grateful for everyone I met.
It's very interesting that you touched on public health. Did this interest develop since the COVID-19 pandemic or since your time here in Malaysia maybe? Does this prompt you to also reflect on healthcare in the United States?
So the public health is always, I'm a humanities and arts person, but my public health has always been a focus, starting actually even before I joined the Foreign Service. Just like education is a personal interest, I was a teacher in China, and I worked in public education in the US before joining the service. So I think of public health as it's a good for everyone. And as we have seen with COVID-19, none of us are alone. Public health, infectious disease, no matter who you are, it is going to have an impact on you. You cannot hide from it. And so working in public health, it's sort of the infrastructure of human life. I worked in, my second assignment was in Jakarta, Indonesia. I was at the embassy. And we had a lot of people working in HIV/AIDS. It's a long time ago. It was in the early 90s. And the interaction between public health and sociology and having people change their behaviors to protect themselves, for me, was a fascinating set of issues. And we are facing it now in COVID-19. It's an infectious disease. To change the spread, individuals have to change their behavior, and it's extremely difficult. So I think it, and I also think that cooperation between countries in public health, it's only good. It's like environmental conservation. It's for everybody, right? So I always think it is the thing we can, even if we are having some difficulty in the relationship, we disagree on some policies or in this area, we can always work together no matter what.
Ambassador, cooperation in global health solidarity is important, I agree, but what's also needed right now is leadership. And I want to move on to what we're seeing in the United States right now, since witnessing one of the most polarizing presidential elections and what was described as an attack on democracy in the Capitol riots recently. Can America still claim to be the pinnacle of democracy and freedom globally?
I think of democracy a little bit differently, which is the democracy is the people who make it so. So you don't say democracy, you don't inherit democracy. You don't just, it's not that perfect box and here it is, and you don't have to do any care and tending. We in the US, we talk about we the people, and that's what this is. We the people have to do the work. And I've said to my team here, every generation is tested and every generation must build and strengthen their democratic institutions. And in the United States, we are guided by our Constitution and how our founders designed our government. So we don't have a parliamentary system. We have a system with 3 branches. And it was set up to balance the branches against each other, to protect the interests of we the people. So our government is often perceived as messy and slow and confused, but the founders knew what they were doing. They were saying, you will have these branches to protect individual freedoms. And there's a famous statement about Ben Franklin coming out after they finished the Constitution. He says, we have given you the Constitution, we have given you your government. Will you be strong enough to protect it and defend it? And every generation, that's what we do. It is not the buildings, it is we the people. And we are now in the fight. We are following the Constitution. That's what you saw the Congress do very, very, very late on that day in January. They followed the Constitution. The 50 states followed the Constitution and their own constitutions. The Electoral College did. And now today, but it's tomorrow in the US, in Washington, President-elect Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris will be sworn in, and they will be president and vice president. And we, the people, will have to work very hard to strengthen and build our institutions and to strengthen our democracy. That's true of every country. It's not easy. It's hard work. What was the term? There's always more work.
Being one of the oldest democracies, as we're seeing democracies all around the world being tested in the time of COVID-19 and the challenges that Biden has to overcome in reuniting the country again after such a polarizing election, what are some lessons learned in the effort to protect democracy in such a challenging time?
So I have been in Malaysia, so I have not actually been home, but I think there's some basic things, which is for me, and it is interesting because it is part of the debate in the US. I believe that we have to protect debate. We have to protect discussion in the public square. I also feel strongly we have to protect our press freedoms because we need to understand what's happening. The press often is the voice of many different parts of society. They also inform leaders about what are the concerns of the people. The US is a very large country. It's very diverse. As you know, we have 50 states, we have territories, we have rural areas and cities. And so it's really important also at the local level for our government to be strong, not just at the national level, but at the state and local level. One of the interesting things is there's been a strong call, and this has been happening, for more people to enter government, for more people to run, that this is a moment where we need to strengthen our institutions, strengthen our political debate and discussion. This is not the moment for people to give up. And I think one of the most important things, which I think Malaysia shares with us, is the importance of young people entering into politics and young people bringing their dreams and visions and their hard work, and that for them to learn that change takes work. Change takes organizing and persuading, convincing. And I think one of the things that I really appreciated in Malaysia during my time is the decision that 18-year-olds and above will get to vote. And I look forward to the day when 18-year-olds in Malaysia vote. I had a wonderful conversation with students at UMK in Kelantan about, they said to me, when did American 18-year-olds get the right to vote? And I told them the story and they were all like, okay. And I was like, exactly. You need to advocate. You need to push forward because you are Malaysia's future leaders. And I think that we need to listen to our young people. They're going to inherit everything.
Ambassador, one of the reasons why we need youth leadership right now is that breath of fresh air in politics. And another renewed sense of hope that we'll likely be seeing is the new style of leadership ushered in by the Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. What message does this send to the global community? And do you perhaps share some similar values with her, besides sharing the same first name?
So I feel that a lot more children in America are going to be named Kamala. So, and I would say that Kamala Harris's mother and my mother had the same good idea. So, for there are countries that are ahead of the United States. There are many countries, and you know them, that already have women presidents and women prime ministers. For the United States, this is our first female vice president. So there are a lot of little girls and little boys who are going to be proud of this and learn that whether you're a girl or a boy, you can aspire to be president and vice president. I also think that Kamala Harris represents diversity in America in a very special way. This is something I always have said, that Malaysia and the United States, we share. We are diverse nations, and we have many immigrants who came hundreds of years ago or came recently, and people fall in love and get married. And so when you meet someone in the United States, like myself, like Kamala Harris, like many, many others, we represent a very diverse background, and our families often are very diverse and have very different experiences. So for me, Kamala Harris represents a very special reality of the United States. And it's not a single person. It is our history. Um, I remember when we did the census when I was living in New York, and I put down my ethnicity, and then my roommate said, wait a minute. Okay, I'm 1/16 Scots Irish, and I'm Norwegian, and I'm French, and I was like, okay, hold on. And they're like, no, this is important. And one of my roommates said, well, I'm African American, and I'm Cherokee, and I'm this, and I'm that, and this is America. This is who we are. And by the way, this is Malaysia. This is who you are. Yeah. And embrace the power of it. Embrace the power of it.
This renewed message of diversity will not only be reflected in Malaysia, but in the whole Southeast Asian region. What will the U.S. relationship with Southeast Asia look like under Biden, and will he continue Obama's legacy in America's pivot to Asia?
So I think it's hard because it's a little bit early. And they haven't been sworn in yet, and not all of, and certainly their leadership team has not been completely sworn in and confirmed by the Senate. I do think the importance of East Asia Pacific and ASEAN in particular is something that this administration will very much understand. And the importance of being present and engaging, I think, also is something that they will understand. A lot of President-elect Biden's team in foreign policy have experience, global experience, have experience in diplomacy, and have experience in this region. So I also think all of us will have to look toward the economic consequences of COVID-19. So I think looking at supply chains and FDI, and looking at what US companies are deciding to do in terms of the lessons learned out of what happened in COVID-19. That will bring new opportunities, but that also may bring new challenges. So I think that the new team is very aware of how economically dynamic this region is and how important it is to the global economy. So I think there'll be a focus.
Now, lastly, Ambassador Kamala, what are some parting words that you'd like to share with us before you leave?
So thank you. So my parting words are simply that. Thank you to all the Malaysians who have been so kind to me, have welcomed me into their home or into their office or school. Thank you so much for every curry puff and every nasi lemak and every ice kacang. Thank you for all of that. But I always say, Malaysians want me to tell them how much I love Malaysian food, and I do. But I have always said I love Malaysians more. And so when I leave here, I'm going to take all my love for Malaysia in my heart and return to the United States. And I feel a debt to the people of Malaysia for how warm and welcoming and gracious they've been. And I will never forget that debt. So thank you. And the most important thing to say is please stay safe, and please take care of your health, and please wear the mask and wash your hands.
Thank you so much for your time and your insight, Ambassador Kamala, and we wish you all the best in your future endeavors. That is all with me, Naila Huda, on this edition of Perspective. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you again.